And here's a great tip. I know I've said this before a couple times, but race ramps are great for this when the car is a little bit taller. Makes it easy to reach out here to the center of the hood. Okay, so paint protection film doesn't really like to stick to headlights, which is a bummer because I am running into that issue right now. I'm gonna wrap around to the back here and put some pressure on this. And we're gonna hold that there for a minute. We can even squeegee that out. And this is not normal for a 4-corner tack. This is not a situation that I run into much, but that headlight really, the material does not want to stick to that. How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore, PPF and Tint, and today we are going to be installing a bulk piece of paint protection film on the hood of this, oh man, I want to call it a Volvo again. It's a Mazda. It's the Mazda CX-70. Those numbers remind me for whatever reason of a Volvo, and so I mess this up like constantly when I'm saying the name of this car, what this car is to people. Which actually, honestly, it's mostly just to you guys other than to the owner, which I already messed up twice. All right, well, we're bulking this. And what I've got here is a 72-inch roll. So we've got 72 inches in width, and I've got 54 inches in depth on this piece of film. And that gives us about 3 inches on both sides hanging over roughly. And that's a great amount of extra to have. Let's see. That's it. I think that's all I have to say about that. We're going to use a 4-corner tack on this like I do for a lot of my installs, or majority of them when it comes to hoods. You want to make sure that you've got like at least an inch of overhang there, and I'll go over, explain why in a moment. I did add a little bit of extra soap to this because this film tends to be a little bit more tacky than some of the films that we use. And this is the... This film here is the Flink film, and this is a film that we're actually able to sell to you guys. This is the Flink film, which is actually a film we're able to sell to you guys. So this is a fantastic product. I'm really enjoying using it, and we started to use it on majority of our installs. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on this and show you how we get this done. All right, so with a 4-corner tack, it's just like the name states, we need to tack all 4 corners down. And as you can see, I mean, there's not much here for fingers. And really, I think you could kind of really just kind of squeegee those out, but a very minor 4-corner tack will just eliminate those so we don't have to worry about them. And now I did prop the hood open a bit, and the reason that I did that was so that this back of the hood here now sits proud of the fender, and that's important. Otherwise, there's other steps that you need to do in order to get this to stick in this area so you don't end up with a bunch of lift lines or work marks in the adhesive. And so getting this hood up a little bit on the front brings this up, and that then makes a situation where we don't have to worry about the this extra step for this. All right, so I sprayed some tack in there, and what I'm going to go ahead and do now is tack this down, and then let's see what we need here. It's kind of a little bit funky because of this corner here on the or the bend there on this fender. We want to make sure we keep good contact on the hood, like right there. But when we stretch this out, I believe this should lay down. Okay, so that is good and stuck down. Let's go ahead and tack the other 3 corners. Feeling really good. We're floating in there really good. Let's go ahead and get a little bit more soap in here on this air pocket. And let's get rid of just a little bit of that. Those big air pockets, they can start to tack, or the adhesive inside that air pocket starts to dry. And then the problem with that is that when you squeegee over it, if you don't add enough moisture to that and reintroduce moisture to that air pocket, what happens is that that can lay down and then leave a dry mark, and we don't want that. That's like a white mark that we'd have to lift it up and fix that. Okay, let's get some tack solution on this one. And, you know, this is just the same basically every time with these 4-corner tacks like this. We're going to go ahead and put a little bit of a stretch on this from side to side. So I'm going to just hold there for a second. And that spot where I held, it really likes to stick down in those areas then. So that really helps that stay stuck down. Okay. Now we're going to go over and take a look at the other side, because I do notice that we've got some fingers there now coming off from the side because of that extra tension I put on it from left to right. And I just want to make sure that when I pull on this, it's all going to go away just like it is. Great. Let's go ahead then. Let's get a little bit of tack on this. And what we're going for is just tack to this headlight here. And it's not a lot of stretch, so don't get too crazy. We just need enough just to get rid of the fingers. So you want, basically this, what they call this is glassing it out. You want no fingers down this side, and you want to get rid of majority, at least half of the fingers going this way, and the rest of them we'll get rid of when we get over there. Okay, so paint protection film doesn't really like to stick to headlights, which is a bummer because I am running into that issue right now. Let's see, what else can we do with this? It really is not sticking to this at all. So, I mean, look at that. It's still just floating around on there. But that's going to be a problem, because if we do a 4-corner tack and this pops up, it's a nightmare. It really just makes lots and lots of problems for the install. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go ahead and stick some tack on this edge. Oh, I'm almost out of tack. That's a bummer. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead. I can see where I was pulled down to before, which is right there, because it left a little line in the adhesive, and I'm going to go ahead and put that same stretch in it, or a little bit more, and I'm going to wrap around. Oh, look at it. I didn't get quite enough pull on that, but that should be okay. I'm going to wrap around to the back here and put some pressure on this. And we're going to hold that there for a minute. We can even squeegee that out. And this is not normal for a 4-corner tack. This is not a situation that I run into much, but that headlight really, the material does not want to stick to that, which can be a pretty common thing for paint protection film with headlights. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and put a little tug on this. See, we got rid of all of our fingers around, and then we're going to go ahead, put some tack in here, and we're going to wrap this around to the back here. I have my thumb in that just for a moment, and I want to make sure that I didn't leave or pre-tack the material right there. Okay, let's make sure that this is still floating back here. Just tacking a little bit on the very edge. That's okay. We just by lifting that up, we got rid of that. Just want to make sure that these corners don't break loose, because that creates a really big problem. All right, now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to remove some of these air pockets, and then we're going to deal with this type of area first. So let's go ahead and just kind of push these guys out and just get rid of some of these bigger ones. Okay, that's looking good. And then you can just stick your arm out there on it and just slide your arm across it, and you can see how much better that does than just your hand. I call this my signature move. Okay. All right, so let's get this pushed out, and then all we really need is just a little bit of tension on this edge, and that's gonna hold that down. Just like that. So let's go ahead, and I do want to take care of these two areas first because of the big air pocket in there. I don't want to leave that. So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll squeegee this down this body line here, and then we'll bring everything else out to the side here. I don't know if you can see that, but in the water, or in the soapy water on the top of the panel there, I'm leaving a lot of streaks in that. And what that means is that my edge on here is rough, and we don't want that. So after this car, I will be going through and running and cutting this edge off and cutting a new edge on it. Because that allows you to leave moisture behind pretty easily, and we definitely don't want that situation. Okay, that is going to continue to pop up because it really needs some tack in there. So let's sneak some tack in there, which I'm just running out. I'm running on the bare bones amount of tack going in this bottle right now. Okay. Now that tack in there will keep that from popping back up. You could also do a swipe and hold on that edge, and that really is going to ensure that that stays down. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that, because let's get this side down, and then let's get this center squeegeed out. Okay, so a little bit more soap in this back in here. Make sure we're not getting any pre-tacking. Kind of splash it around in there. Okay. Pull that down like this. Let's get a little bit of tack right in this edge. Oh, that's quite pathetic of me to do this with the I don't know why I do this. Why do I start a video without making sure that I'm ready to go? If you've seen my videos before, you'll know that that's not my first time doing this. And we're starting to get some pre-tacking there, so we're gonna wanna go over to the other side here and squeegee that part out. Now with the pressure I put right there, that should hold that down. And I already did squeegee that out, so that's good. Okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take the red squeegee, because I wanna be able to conform into this recess real well. And we're just gonna pull this back a little bit here. Like this. Okay, we are getting some fingers on the side, and we will deal with that in a moment. With some tack solution. After I go get myself some more. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and, I don't know, sometimes on these hoods I like do things differently. I don't really have a rhyme or reason to some of this. Sometimes I take it all back. Today what I wanna do is take all this part forward. And then remember, this is already tacked down here, so we need to get all of this stuff, all of that soap away from there, or the moisture underneath there. We want to bring it away from there, because we do not want to try to drag it through here. Okay. Same thing, let's get that away from the side. Just releasing this here. I could tell it was tacking a little bit, because when I was pushing some of the rest of this out, I could hear it when I went over it, like popping it up off that edge. And so we go ahead and just release that so that this stuff will squeegee right out. Otherwise, what happens is when that edge is tacking down a bit, when you squeegee it out, the water will hit this edge and then go to the side of the squeegee. And then that's, you know, you're just creating more work for yourself at that point. Okay. Let's go ahead and take all of this back. And here's a great tip. I know I've said this before a couple times, but race ramps are great for this when the car is a little bit taller. Makes it easy to reach out here to the center of the hood. So we're just bringing all this back. Good even strokes. You can see there that this squeegee is not leaving any water behind on the surface. And then I'll show you this one here. See that? See the difference there? We don't like that as much. Oh, look at that. We got a little pre-tack in here on this edge, which makes sense because we have all this tension downward off of this part. And so it squeezes the water out of there, squeezes all that moisture out. And then starts to tack itself, just basically starts to dry, right? So, okay. Go ahead and bring this back. Now we're gonna need to basically tack this part onto the fender up higher, and that's what's gonna push that down, but we're gonna need a little bit of tack solution for that situation. And so what I wanna do is just go ahead and get rid of everything else and get it pushed out, and then we'll get back to that. I don't know if that shows up in the camera there, but what just happened right here, see, I don't know if you could tell, but it was white and now it's already starting to dry clear. And that was from me pushing a water pocket out, and right there again, that's from a little bit of the air pushing the air. Let's see, gosh, how do I explain that? That's gonna dry clear. Gosh, how do I explain that? I'm not quite sure. Pushing this out and letting some of the air get trapped behind, like a very thin layer of it. That's not a great explanation, sorry. Maybe another time I'll come up with a better way to explain that. But like, let's say I'm pushing this out and that air pocket comes over here in the dry spot and leaves a tiny bit of air behind. It dries clear though. Yeah, that's all I got, sorry. If that doesn't seem helpful, I apologize. All right, let's take all this stuff back now. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure the surface is plenty wet there, and I'm just gonna go ahead right now and pop this up before we even get back here. And what this also probably means is that right here, this is really stuck down, so we're gonna be avoiding trying to push any moisture out of this edge because it's really tight right there. And so at that point, we'll either need to take it left or right from there. Just make sure you're doing good overlapping strokes and that you're starting plenty far down enough that you're not leaving any moisture behind, because nothing worse than pushing all this out and then having like a big water pocket sitting out here. Okay, so that was already squeegeed out here and I was squeegeeing over this way. And so because that's already dry, we don't want to push any, or starting to dry, we don't want to push any moisture out into there. So I go ahead and I start on that side of it, or over in that area, and I work my way basically both of these towards kind of what I call a middle, and we squeegee this out. Okay, and then everything now needs to go back this way here on this corner. Oh, I saw a white thing there and I was like, oh, don't be something underneath there. It wasn't. It's on the surface. Okay, got that edge good and squeegeed out now. And then now I can go grab some more tack solution and we'll take care of these here by tacking this down to the fender. As I walk around, I'm checking my edge, make sure I didn't leave any water in there, and make sure nothing's popping up. Okay. So tack solution, I have a video that goes over this, but 70% rubbing alcohol, and it's about 20% of tack solution and then 80% water. And this is the water that goes through the APEC filter that we have. So it's a reverse osmosis system. And then I'm gonna fill that up. Basically on the side here, we filled up to here with the rubbing alcohol, and then I'm gonna fill all the way up to there with the water. Sorry, I'm just paying attention there. Took some real focus to make sure I turned that off at the right time. All right, so those are fine like they are for a moment. I'd rather get this down here. So let's get a bunch of Tack solution in here. And then we'll get some slip on top. And I'm gonna go back to the black squeegee now because we want some good pressure on there. So let's go ahead first and get out the bulk of all that. And then we will go ahead and do a swipe and hold on this. Okay. So actually, I mean, I don't know what you call that now. That's not really a true 4-corner tack. And that's rare that I do that. It's just another thing to have in your toolkit, you know, for when things aren't going as planned. Still got to get the job done. Okay, so we got a lot of tack everywhere. Some mist on there. And then we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna push this down and I'm gonna hold with my fingers there. And you see how that got that edge nice and tight. And so now all we need to do is squeegee the rest of this out. Little swipe and hold there. And we don't have to worry about that stuff coming back up now. Over to the other side, we'll do the same thing. Okay, so same thing there. Let's get that stuck down. And then we hold just to make sure it doesn't pop up. And then I did notice when I was lifting this up to spray the tack underneath there that this was coming up just a little bit. So I went ahead and filled all those with tack as well. And then we'll go ahead and take that stuff out. Good pressure there pushing that out. We want that stuff to come out really the first time. And we know this edge is sticking already because we've got tension on it and it's straight tack solution. So we got to get some good pressure on that when we're passing over that in order to get the tack solution to break the edge free and then let the solution out. Okay. Honestly, it's a pretty straightforward hood. Oh, and look at that, we are coming up a tiny bit, but that's because our stuff broke loose here. So let's go ahead, let's get a little bit more tack up in there on that edge, and then let's try this again. So the reason that this side is popping up like this is because this already has paint protection film on it on this fender. I kind of went out of order a little bit today because I've got to record all, you know, I record this stuff for you guys, and I got to a point where I didn't want to record for a little bit. So I jumped ahead and did a fender by myself, and then the other one will record. But normally my normal operation is to do bumper, hood, and then fenders is how I normally handle things. This paint protection film here happens to have a little bit of, I don't know if it has any type of ceramic coating or anything, but it's, you can see that the water just beads up on it. So it's got a hydrophobic kind of thing going on there. So does that one. And so this is both the Flink, and that makes the film not want to stick to it, because obviously that's kind of the purpose of like a ceramic coating or whatnot. So, all right, so all these edges are down really good. I have been scanning out there as well while I was doing the install and while I was walking around to make sure that there wasn't anything out there. There's no big pieces of debris, no piece of hair, no piece of anything that's going to cause me a problem with my final product appearance wise. Now we'll just kind of wait for some of this to dry a bit, and then we'll go ahead and let's see. What do you guys think? Should we do a pre-wrap today? All right, let's go ahead and do a pre-wrap today. So what we need to do now in order for that is we need to trim all of these edges off to where they're going to, we need to trim them off at the length that they need to be at to wrap underneath the hood. So this is our final trim on these. Look at that, it just keeps popping up off of here. Fortunately, this all stayed, otherwise that would have been a nightmare. All right, let's go ahead and we're gonna leave, you know, roughly a little bit less than a 1/4 inch here. There's a lot of tension on this material right here, so I don't really have to give it the tug we would normally give it, but now I will have to start to do that. Otherwise, you want to be pulling away from the blade and in 2 directions, one back and one let's just say then, how do I want to word that? Let's say you need to be pulling away at like a 45-degree angle. And that keeps that material nice and tight on the edge of the blade so that it continues to cut nice and smoothly. Okay, right here, I'm gonna go ahead and just leave that whole corner attached. I don't wanna pop that up yet underneath there. Just make sure that everything's totally dry before we do that. Okay, and then we'll start right here. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and start over here. And my finger there, my pointer finger, is running along the edge of the hood, and that's one of the things that's helping keep a nice straight edge there. Okay, don't pull on this too hard away from the hood, otherwise you're gonna break that part loose, and that's the part I'm trying to leave on there for now. Okay. Back to the right hand doing the cutting. Not that the other hand's the wrong hand. All right. So the nice thing about this pre-wrap is that we're going to have then our finished edge for the evening. And I say for the evening because I'm going home after this. Let me check this phone real quick here. All right, so we're leaving that again. Start back up over here. It's kind of hard to start there and come back this way, so we'll go ahead and do the same thing there, where we start over here and work our way back down to this corner. Yeah, it's hard to put a tug on this because this is all like smudged. I was gonna say smudged up under there. It's kind of all crinkled up together down there, so I'm not gonna mess with that right now. But what this does is this gives us our finished edge for the evening. Is going to be wrapped around a little bit to the underneath of the hood, and at minimum it's going to be wrapped off the front here, like right there. We're basically still on the top of the hood on the very edge, and so what we're going to do is we're going to get our finished edge for tonight just wrapped, curled around a little bit, and that's going to make the process of heat sealing these edges, and it's not heat sealing, I'm sorry, I say that from time to time, but that's not what this is. When we're going to be wrapping these edges tomorrow morning, and that basically, the pre-wrap gets the most crucial part done for us right now, and then tomorrow it's just pushing them down. Because what can happen is if you don't do a pre-wrap, then you can trap little air pockets or water pockets or anything. I mean, probably not water, but mostly air pockets in there as you're pushing this down, and then you might have to lift it up in order to get rid of those. Well, that pre-wrap eliminates that problem. Plus, if later on, you know, somebody was to bump into this while they're working on another part, you don't have to worry about them doing any damage to basically your finished area that the customer is going to see, because it's around more towards the bottom. Very careful right in here. because we've got the fender right there. So I'm just barely nicking the edge of the material with the blade here. Not good. Look at that. You guys see that pop up right there? What the heck? That blows me away. I can't believe that just happened. All right, so now let's see if we can fix this. So the problem with this is that now, because the tension is different, so we had a bunch of tension on here, and not a whole bunch, that didn't require a whole lot for this vehicle. But the issue is now that we need to put that exact same amount of tension back in this so that we don't end up with a lift line right there. So I'm just kind of looking at the material. Ooh, okay, that went quite good. Okay, so I put some more tension on it and then pushed it back down. I'm pretty surprised that happened. That's super rare that happens to me, but it will happen from time to time. If you don't get that same amount of stretch back in it, you're gonna leave a line there where that popped up. But fortunately, that went really, really well, so we're in good shape. Okay. That could have, you know, that could leave a mark, and then that's disappointing, right? I wouldn't redo a hood because of that, but it's like, oh. If the customer complained, I would. Okay, let's reach out here. There's moisture on that edge too. How did this happen? Wow, that's odd. I obviously did not get squeegee that out well enough, I guess, on that corner. So we're not going to be trimming this off back here, because the last thing we need is for this to break loose and do the same thing as it tried to do on the other side. Okay, let's see if we can get this under here. Let's spray Tack solution in there. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is just completely stay away from this whole area here, because that needs to finish curing now. So I'm just gonna cut this away from there. And then this part we can tear like straight away like that. All right, so now what we need to do is go around. Look at that's coming up a little bit right there too. Okay, I only found that by putting my finger on there and lifting up on the material to put this Tack solution underneath the edge. All right. Let's go ahead and spray this edge out. That just gets rid of any soapy water that could be left underneath there, and replaces it with Tack solution, because we want that edge to be good and tacky. All right, I'm gonna do about half of that so we can get to the pre-wrap here on this side, and then we'll go ahead and I'll do the other side by myself. So basically you just go over that edge, wrap around to the very bottom of the side or all the way underneath a little bit, and just swipe and hold all the way around. I always feel like this is like so incredibly boring and takes forever, but it really only takes a few minutes. It's just a slow process, but as you can see there, that gets rid of your edge on the side. So if that gets bumped or anything, or when you're rolling it underneath the rest of the way tomorrow, it just makes it so much easier. And I say tomorrow like just because that's what I'm doing, but I don't always only do this if I'm leaving this overnight. This is just a good habit to get into. And sometimes water works better. And I'm not worried about it like really staying down underneath there. I just want to get it off of that top edge. So good pressure, roll that around. And you want to make sure you're using good pressure because you don't want to leave any moisture behind trapped on that edge, because that kind of defeats the purpose then, doesn't it? And I think I just said that sometimes water works better than the Tack solution. Just flush it out with warm water, or just any water really. It doesn't have to necessarily be warm, but warm even just will make that aggressive even, or adhesive more aggressive. All right, well, you get the idea. I'm gonna finish this up and then I'll see you guys in the morning for me. And we'll go ahead and wrap these edges and be done with this hood. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap these edges. So, I don't know, this pre-wrap didn't do great from yesterday. Maybe water would have been a better thing to use. It definitely kind of still popped back up. I mean, it helped a little bit, but not as much as it could have. So I'm gonna go ahead with my finger here with a lot of pressure with my thumb and push and round this edge a bit, just to make sure that if we bump into any of the rest of this while we're trimming and stuff like that, that we don't leave air pockets or anything on the edges. So see that right there? So let's come that way, this way with that. Okay. All right, now we need to finish trimming this. And then we'll see how much access we have to this corner here, and then we'll decide what to do with that corner, as far as leave it hanging over like that or just like 45ing it right like that. Okay, we'll push this part down so it's just over the edge. And then let's trim these parts here. These parts we will be able to use the melt method on because it's just right, you know, when we open that, it'll be right out in the open for us. Okay, that's still kind of all crinkled up under there, so let's just pull the whole thing back there and trim this off. No, it's like kind of stuck to itself under there. So I'm gonna hold on here while I pull back on that to get that unstuck from itself, because you don't want it to pop up off the top. Okay. Let's go and heat these edges up and wrap them around. So we're just putting some heat on these, and then I'm just getting them around that edge really well here. And then you just kind of work it down little by little each time. So about 3 passes is what it normally takes. Corners, I'll just go straight back with that, and then we'll work away from those corners. And then we'll come back in at the end here and melt method those. So I'm bumping into the rubber here just a little bit underneath. I can feel my thumb running into it. So the film is starting to stick to that instead of wrapping around to the hood. So I'm gonna just warm this up, continue to get this started being rolled over, and then I'm gonna have to put the heat gun down. Kind of show you what I'm talking about here. You can see there's rubber in here, and so I'm just going to pull down on this so I can wrap this in. All right, then when it's open like this, you can even just put the heat right on the adhesive side. And again, we're gonna go for this corner, and then we'll work them away from the corner. So I've got the heat gun at 770 degrees. I don't like it to be super hot while I'm doing this, so window tinting, you know, I turn this thing all the way up. So, but definitely not for doing this type of stuff. So I left a couple little, tiny little air pockets there that I want to pull this back to and get those out like that. And then let's wrap that back down again. Looks like we're going to be able to get to the back of this without any problem. So we can go ahead and just wrap this underneath. And then we'll get back there and melt method this corner. All right, and let's take a look down here. Just getting that opened up all the way. I'll reach underneath here, put some heat on this corner. About an 8 count or so. And then just push that down. And just be careful when you're doing things like this, because you do not want to overheat this plastic here, because it'll make it look glossy in the area you overheated it. Okay, we're gonna get some heat back here on these parts here that have some little fingers popping up. And then let's check these corners here. You know, on the channel I do have a hood that I did this on that went in our showroom, and I think I did this stuff just like right out in the open, so I got some good close-ups and stuff of these type of corners. Well, and I have a video that goes over specifically corners, so if you want something to see something that's goes into a lot more detail about corners in general, I've got like a video called 6 corners, 6 different corners or something like that. Okay. Oh, 6 different corners, 6 different techniques is what it's called. All right, I'm just gonna double check this last corner here. And then there were a couple fingers right here. Just put a little bit more heat on those. Push those down, make sure they don't pop up over time. Those ones went down real well. Okay. All right, terrific. Well, that's it. This one's all finished up. So appreciate you guys taking a look at this. That's the process of a bulk installing paint protection film on the hood of this 2025 Mazda CX-70. So hopefully you guys found something helpful. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.